A mom arrested for allegedly plotting to kill her ex-husband. But police say the supposed hitman she told she wanted to pay to make her ex, quote, disappear and be put underground was actually an undercover cop. But that is just part of this twisted story.
My brother died protecting me from my father, Aaron Solomon. My father's a monster. It makes me want to vomit.
The alleged attempt to put a murder-for-hire plot into motion is just the latest chapter in this family's drama that includes allegations of sexual abuse and murder. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. We have a lot to unpack in the case of Angelia Solomon. This is her picture in custody after her last court appearance near Nashville. She's currently being held on a $500,000 bond as she faces a charge of first-degree solicitation murder for hire. This picture is per WSMV TV. In attendance for that hearing was the man who she allegedly tried to have killed. This is her ex-husband, Aaron Solomon. He's a former local news anchor in Nashville. Before we get into exactly how this alleged murder-for-hire plot went down, supposedly in a suburban mall parking lot, we have to go back years to all of the public issues that this couple has had. In 2013, court records show that Aaron Solomon filed for divorce. Aaron was a former local news anchor who left the desk a few years prior. Here's the Facebook post from his co-anchor in 2011 announcing that Aaron resigned from his position in part to focus more on he and his wife's business. The Solomons had two kids, Gracie and Grant. From pictures, this family seemed to be perfect. Aaron, a figure in the community from his time as a broadcaster, and Angie, according to her Facebook page, a pharmacist. But that could not be further from the truth. We looked through court documents in Tennessee related to a lawsuit that Aaron filed against Angie accusing her of slander. The court documents allege that Angie Solomon claimed Aaron physically, mentally, and sexually abused her and their children. In the eyes of the court, those accusations did not have merit, and Aaron was awarded custody of Grant and Gracie. A judge wrote ahead of dismissing Aaron's slander lawsuit that, quote, the divorce court found Ms. Solomon's allegations of abuse lacked merit. Aaron Solomon has never been charged with accusations of abuse, and through his lawyer in court documents has denied the accusations. Then comes a major development in this story. July 20th, 2020. The Solomons' 18-year-old son, Grant, a budding high school baseball star, is killed.
My son's truck backed over him, and it's rolled over him and dragged him into the ditch, and it's on top of him.
That is the 911 call that Aaron Solomon made after police say Grant died in that tragic accident. We're hearing this on a podcast that was posted by digital journalist Nick Shepard with Angie Solomon last year. This happened at a baseball training facility near Nashville. Investigators say that Grant was run over by his own truck in the parking lot, and the only witness to what happened was Aaron Solomon, according to Angie. These are some of the pictures that police posted, and Angie put them on a website that we'll talk about in just a moment. Aaron has never been charged in the death of Grant, but the fact that he was there has fueled opinions that Grant's death should have been investigated more. Some have called it suspicious. Some people have called it mysterious. And many say that not enough was done. All of those theories were fueled even more by the public accusations made by Angie. Angie launched websites and social media accounts going by names like Freedom for Gracie. The accounts that Angie created posted statements saying that Aaron murdered his son Grant and that he used his influence as a former news anchor and with friends he had in the community to make an investigation go away. Also, there are accusations that Aaron sexually abused his daughter Gracie. Again, Aaron has never been charged, and according to a later dismissed slander lawsuit that Aaron filed against his ex-wife, a judge wrote that the accusations that Angie made online against Aaron were, quote, false.
I just want to say before we get into any of this that it's coming straight from me. It's all me.
Then we go to May 12th, 2021, less than a year after Grant died. This is an 18-minute, 16-second video that was posted on YouTube from the account Freedom for Gracie.
My brother died protecting me from my father, Aaron Solomon. My father's a monster. It makes me want to vomit. I've been minimalized, but now I've found my voice to be able to tell you that my father raped me, hurt me, and I'm not going to be a victim of this monster. He's a rapist, he's a molester, he's a liar, and he's a killer.
That is Gracie Solomon going public and going directly at her dad, accusing him of rape and being involved in her brother's death. I want to take a moment and thank our partners at Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring this episode of On the Case. If you watch this show, you know that these stories prove that life can be unpredictable and having a great attorney matters, and that is where Morgan & Morgan comes in. This is a law firm with more than 1,000 attorneys and a history of winning. Let me read for you just a couple of big wins that Morgan & Morgan has had in just the past couple of months, like a $9.3 million verdict. That was for a car crash victim in Florida. $5.6 million. That was another car accident victim, that time in Atlanta, and $1.8 million in Kentucky. And in that case, the insurance company was only going to offer $5,000. Now, even if you don't think your case is worth millions of dollars, why not fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it so easy to start a claim. It just takes 8 easy clicks on your phone. So if you're injured and you need to start a claim, go to www.forthepeople.com/OTC. You can also click the link in the description of this video or scan the QR code on your screen.
I hate my dad. I'm absolutely terrified of him for everything he has done to me, my brother, and my mom. I don't want to call him my dad anymore. He's never listened to me. He has hurt me sexually, physically, and mentally. He has caused so much pain for my family. He has tried to manipulate me and has manipulated others, and it has worked. Ever since I was born, my dad has done awful things to me. First, he never let my mom bathe me. It was always him. So by not letting my mom come in at all, it meant that he could do anything to me. I would always tell my mom I felt like I was more like a wife to him instead of his daughter.
That video has more than 177,000 views on YouTube. Aaron Solomon has never been charged with sexually abusing his daughter, and through court documents has denied those accusations. Angie and Grace, though, they have doubled down on that video. They went on national TV last year. They accused Aaron of killing Grant and law enforcement of not doing enough. This is what they said in an interview last year on News Nation with Ashley Banfield.
Gracie, I'm going to ask you, this is hard because I know you're a child, but I know that your mom is with you and is allowing you to do this interview. Back when you were 14, a couple years ago, you made a riveting video, which was really bold and very, very courageous for a child. You made some serious accusations against your father. You said he was guilty of sexual molestation, emotional abuse. You called him a monster, a liar, a rapist, and a killer. Can you tell me a little bit about why you think your father may be responsible for your brother's death?
Yes. First off, I want to say thank you so much for having us. It really means a lot that someone's reaching out to us and we are able to speak about our truth and our story. I would like to say, from my personal experiences with my father and witnessing how he treated my brother, it is very reasonable for him to be responsible for the death of my brother.
Now, a major question that you might have at this point is, if what Angie is alleging is true, why would Aaron Solomon kill his own son? This is what Angie said on a podcast with social media creator Justin Shepard, who posts under the handle Just in the Nick of Crime.
That Aaron could be implicated in the death of Grant. What motive would a father have to kill his own child?
To silence him.
For about what, though?
Gracie. Grant had, he had testified in court multiple times. He took great pride in who he was as a person, his integrity, and also his intellect we were talking about earlier. And he had testified, and even testifying, judges would say, "You're never going back." There's a judge here in juvenile court in Williamson County that Grant told, "I'm afraid my dad's going to kill me." And he looked at him and he looked at Aaron and he said, "I think you're big enough to take care of yourself. You can go back." So he was very hurt that no one would believe his mother or believe him and not believe his sister to get us help. And when he turned 18, he had planned, he did not tell me this, he told his friends and his girlfriend, Hannah, that he was going to take Aaron to court himself and expose him. And he, for who he is and what he's doing, and for what he's done to Gracie. And he was going to fight for custody of Gracie himself so that he could make sure she was safe.
Aaron Solomon has not spoken publicly to the media about the accusations that are being made against him by his ex-wife and his daughter. In 2021, when Aaron sued Angie for slander, you can see he lists several names as defendants, but Gracie was not one of them. That slander lawsuit was eventually dismissed in federal court, the judge saying that federal court was not the proper venue to hear Aaron's suit and that he was not able to properly show how Angie's accusations hurt him financially. The years of accusations of sexual abuse, domestic violence, and even murder led us, allegedly, to what happened in this mall parking lot near Nashville on April 11th of this year. Police say at 2:15 in the afternoon in this parking lot, Angelia met with someone that she thought was a hitman. Police say she wanted to hire someone to kill Aaron Solomon. She allegedly promised a future payment to the hitman and even provided the registration of her vehicle as a form of initial payment. The arrest affidavit reads that Angelia allegedly wanted Aaron to, quote, disappear and, quote, be put underground. Police say Angelia gave the hitman information on where to find Aaron, like where he may work and where he lives. That hitman was an undercover police officer. They arrested Angelia. They charged her with solicitation to commit first-degree murder. Right now, Angelia Solomon's being held on a $500,000 bond. The alleged motive for hiring a hitman to kill her ex-husband, police say it would be to give Gracie access to a trust fund. Joining us now is Justin Shepard, a digital journalist. Many people know him on social media with the handle Just in the Nick of Crime. Thanks for joining us. I know you've been covering everything surrounding the Solomon family for a couple of years. Let's start with what has been the headline over the past week. Angelia arrested in an alleged murder for hire plot, trying to hire a hitman to kill her husband. Just what was your reaction when you first heard this? Because you've spoken with her on your podcast before.
Yeah, I was absolutely shocked when I saw it. About 8 people sent me the article, and I kind of looked at it, and it took me a minute for it to register, and it was something like, Franklin woman, Tennessee, arrested for murder for hire plot for her basically ex-husband, news anchor. And I'm like, wait, it can't be. And I opened it up, and I was just like, mouth was on the floor, like jaw was on the floor. I was beyond shocked to see that she was arrested in a murder for hire plot.
Yeah, and not only is it ever shocking when you see someone who's trying to allegedly hire a hitman to take someone out, but in this case, I mean, this is a story that goes back. It's overwhelming when you just start peeling away the pieces of it. When did you first start covering Angelia Solomon and the accusations that she was making against her husband?
So I can't remember exactly the date, but it's been a few years. And I met both her, Angie and Gracie, and we heard the story, right? Grant, her son, was killed or died in a vehicular accident, but a very strange accident. And then it comes out that also she's fighting for justice for her daughter, who at the time I met her was 16 and had accusations against her father of pretty extreme sexual abuse from the time that she was about 2 years old, even going so far as when I think she was about 12, and this YouTube video is still out there, where Gracie did go online and posted this letter that she wrote. And the story that I had heard from Angie and Gracie at the time, well, mainly Angie, was that the reason Gracie decided to do that as a 12-year-old was because she felt so endangered for her life after what happened to her brother, and all these accusations, that she wanted this story out there. So if something happened to her, that people would still know what her story was. That's at least what I was told.
And the video, it's still out there. There's shocking allegations that she makes against her dad, Aaron Solomon, who was in court when Angie made her first appearance after being arrested in this alleged murder for hire plot. I want to talk about Grant Solomon for a second, because that is a moment in the story of this family where they really started to get attention. And in 2020, he dies, and Aaron is the only witness to it. And that had a lot of people raising questions and concerns about what happened in this case. But Aaron was never charged. He's never been charged in anything. What do we know about why he wasn't charged?
Well, according to Sumner County Police Department, there's no evidence to charge him. They ruled it as an accident. Now, if you talk to Angie, they're going to say that Sumner County covered it up. They swept it under the rug, that he has immense power in the state, friends with the governor, um, friends with people in a high powered church, which, in Tennessee, churches still do carry a lot of weight, a lot of power, but that's what we're being told. At this point, if you look at the documents from the medical report, from the police report, it's I'm not trying to get into a conspiracy here, but it doesn't really add up. And that's not to say that the person who filled out those reports initially with the police department just wasn't medically knowledgeable to do so. But what I can tell you is that he had a Toyota Tacoma. It was about 5 years old at the time. And the story is that he was getting his baseball bat out of the back of the car, or baseball gloves, some of his equipment, and the truck just started rolling backwards on him. Like, it came out of gear, stopped working, and it was on a fairly steep hill and began to roll back, dragging him underneath it, ultimately killing him, having him under a ditch. But what's really strange to me about it is that the marks on, like, he wasn't really cut up, bruised up that much, at least according to the reports, which didn't really indicate dragging on hot asphalt pavement in July in Tennessee, which would be incredibly, incredibly hot. On top of that, the vehicles, because Aaron was in a car and Grant was in his truck, had just driven from Franklin, which is about 40, 50 miles, give or take, again, on a hot July day. And there was no indication of like burns from the exhaust system or anything like that. And, Grant wasn't like, he was definitely a fit, but tall, bigger kid,
Right.
you know, uh, and I would think that some of the exhaust would have burned his skin or something like that, but it's strange. And then you couple that with the fact that when Aaron makes the 911 call, and I'm not here to judge anybody when they're in a situation like that, because hindsight's always 2020, right? But he doesn't sound overly concerned when he's making that 911 call. So there are some things about Grant's death that really seem very odd. Could it be some freak accident? Absolutely. Could there be more? You can't discount that either.
No, and it's again, that was a story that started to take some issues that the Solomons were having after their divorce and just brought it to a whole new level. When you talked with Angie, did you find her credible?
Um, at the time, yeah, I believed her at the time, and I moreover believed Gracie, because
Yeah.
I'm never gonna, especially when a child's making accusations like that, a 12-year-old child. When you go back and you look at her original video, because Angie had sent me that and said, "Hey, as you're getting into this, you might want to start here. You might want to watch this." So I watched it, and I'm not gonna not believe a girl who's 12 years old saying that this happened to her and going into the detail that she went into. That's not my place to do that. But at the time, I found Angie very credible. But what I can say, and I don't want to go at this moment till more information comes out into too much detail, but at some point during this saga, um, I stopped covering this case, as did a lot of other creators. And there is a reason behind that. I'm not at a point where I can share that yet, but it will come out, I can guarantee that.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot, I think, especially as this case goes forward, where things that have been said in lawsuits, some things have not been unsealed yet. Just there was a couple documents in a defamation suit that have yet to be unsealed. So we'll see if more of that comes to light. And to your point on Gracie, like, this is incredibly delicate to talk about, because that video, it's 18 minutes long. I watched it, and it is hard to watch. She doubled down on those accusations on News Nation related to accusing her dad of having some involvement in her brother's death, though he's never been charged. I'm trying to phrase the question the right way, because we are dealing with some very serious, as you know, very serious allegations. Do we know why Aaron has not been accused as of yet by police related to any sort of sexual abuse accusation?
I can't answer that. What I can only go off of what I've heard when it comes to this, but most of the allegations that I heard happened in Tennessee. And according to Angie, the reason that he had never been brought to justice or charged with any of that was because of his connections in Tennessee. Um, However, there was a situation that she shared with me that happened at a baseball game, Grant's baseball games in North Carolina. And if that's the case, which she says that it was, that allows for the FBI to get involved, because now you've crossed state lines. And whatever power he may wield in Tennessee, he's not going to wield in North Carolina. He's certainly not going to wield with the federal government. And so I had heard that the FBI had gotten involved and was speaking to people. This was probably a year and a half ago, but to my knowledge, nothing has ever come of that. And that was just what I had heard from Angie.
And I have not seen an interview that Aaron. I mean, he worked in media for a long time. He retires as a news anchor, and now it appears he works as a financial advisor. Has he made any statements since this story? Not the murder for hire plot last week, but just everything related to his son's death and then the accusations from his daughter. Has he talked to anybody publicly about it?
So I'm so glad that you asked that. And just so you know, my understanding is he hasn't been a financial advisor in a while. He just hasn't updated his LinkedIn.
Okay.
At least again, according to Angie, he just kind of is basically retired, lives off of whatever they have, which I think his family's pretty wealthy. So that's not really, I don't think money's an issue, basically, based on what
Okay.
I've heard. To answer your question on have anybody heard from him, the answer is no. And I actually his family has been pretty vocal, especially in the last couple days on my Instagram post. His a woman who I believe is his sister, Courtney Burlyak, her and I kind of got into it, and she's basically saying, "Well, what do you expect him to do? Call his daughter a liar? Do you want him to deny this?" And I said, "Yes. I mean, if he's saying that he didn't do this, then yes, you call your daughter a liar if you're innocent." And I kind of put this akin to, and I know this is a much bigger example of this, but you look at Jay-Z right now, right? And he's being drugged into this Diddy mess. He's being accused. And what does he do? He goes nuclear on every single person accusing him, filing lawsuits, fighting tooth and nail, making public statements, suing the lawyers that are involved, making sure that he's doing everything he can to try to keep his name clear. And he's gotten those charges, those lawsuits dropped. Now, I realize that Aaron is not Jay-Z, but he is a local celebrity given who he is. He is still a local public figure. And why if I was somebody being accused of murder and the sexual assault of children, specifically my daughter, you can bet your butt that I would be on every network, everywhere I could, denying these allegations, talking against my ex, especially when they're going on Banfield, they're going on Nancy Grace, they're going, speaking with Daily Mail, New York Post, and a myriad of other publications out there. And he's just sat silent. And the only people who have come to his defense has been family members. And they're not even that great at it. I've offered them platforms, whether it's with me, whether it's with you all, Law&Crime, whether it's with Banfield, if they don't want to talk to, any influencer, go on, tell your story, tell his side. Because right now, the way I look at it, and I think most people look at it, is you have somebody that's not defending himself. And that almost seems like an admission, like the silence equals guilt. And the only time I've ever seen anybody else who's been accused of pretty heinous events just never say a word is Roberta Laundrie, and I think it's safe to say that you don't want to be in the same company as her.
No, certainly not. How do you balance, just as you've covered this story, where you have Aaron's never been charged, but you
Mhm.
do have some of the speculation that anybody can see on social media right now, people are talking about. And then you look at Angie Solomon. Does the arrest this weekend, um, I guess, hurt her credibility in your eyes when it comes to everything else that she's talked about and the concerns that she's raised since this story started?
In my eyes, yes, but not necessarily because of the arrest, because of other things that I've been made aware of, and I know that's very cryptic, and I apologize for that. But I think that this shows a level of hatred towards her ex, towards Aaron, and honestly, if the allegations she's saying are true, then I get where she's coming from on that. However, one thing that really kind of stuck out to me when you look at the affidavit when she spoke with the undercover officer posing as a hitman, she said that basically she wanted access, or Gracie to have access to, the trust fund. It wasn't about justice for Grant and Gracie. It was about money for the trust fund. That's how I read that. Now, maybe I'm wrong in interpreting it that way, uh, but that's how I saw it. And in addition to that, what I can share to the best of my knowledge, there was over 6 digits. I want to say close to $200,000 raised in GoFundmes um, for Angie to be able to exhume Grant's body, bring in forensic analysts and traffic reconstructors and all these different people who are very expensive to do to hire to help bring justice to Grant. And to my knowledge, with $200,000 raised, not a single dime of it that I've seen or heard has been used for any of that. Grant's not been exhumed. I've not heard of any traffic, people being brought in to reconstruct the accident. I've not seen anybody come in and look at the truck, which according to Angie, this is kind of a fun little tidbit. According to Angie, Aaron drove that truck, the one that ran over his own son, for quite some time until there was some kind of what she claims is automotive like insurance fraud where there was a wreck and it got totaled. She found out where the junkyard was that it went to. She went and bought it from the junkyard and has it stored hidden somewhere, apparently, according to her. So, um, you know, she has the stuff in her possession to be able to do this, but she hasn't done it. And, Grant's been gone. It'll be 5 years in July.
And to our knowledge, even in the wake of this, not that a murder for hire arrest would mean that they would reopen the investigation into the son, that the state district attorney, they're not interested, it appears at this point, to reopen that investigation.
That's what I understand. And Sumner County Police even recently made a comment saying that this was basically an accident. There's nothing really to open, kind of open and shut. And it sounds like, at least for the investigation into Grant, that's going to be where it's at, unless she wants to continue to pursue it independently and uncover something that is glaring that was missed or swept under the rug, which, that might exist. But as it sits right now, Grant, Grant's case is going to be where Grant's case is. Her best bet is for Gracie, who is still, her living, breathing child, who is 18 years old now, who can speak for herself. And uh, I think that if you want to go against Aaron, legally speaking, that's going to be your best, or criminally speaking, that's your best bet. But again, these are allegations that have been out there for a long time, and nothing has happened to my knowledge. We know that there's not been an arrest, at least.
And I know, looking at the defamation lawsuit from 2021, 2022, that, and I'm still going through documents at the time of this interview, but I saw like a local news station talked about it as well, that she was limited custody to a couple hours a week with the kids. What do we know about, just from what the courts have said about, because on one hand, you see this story that's being put out on, whether it's a channel like yours, or I know Nancy Grace, Banfield, all these major networks, and it's an incredibly tragic story. It's a compelling story when you hear it, but then you look at some of these court documents that make it seem like she has serious mental health issues and that she was limited in terms of custody with the family. Like, what do we make sense of what the courts have said to this point, the fact that Aaron hasn't been charged, but then a story on the other hand that are some very serious accusations?
Yeah. So, as far as the courts go, the story from Angie is that basically Aaron had her committed. Aaron used the people that he knew, the power that he had to get her committed. And if if you look at other stories, I'll bring this one up. We have similar rumors on that. You look at Micah Miller and JP Miller. Supposedly he used his power to put her in mental institutions. So I'm not going to put that past anybody. But Angie, the way she told the story was basically that he wanted to continue, Aaron wanted to continue that, showing that he was in control of the situation, basically had her committed, had basically all the people that he knew, from judges, lawyers, politicians, etc., um, make her look insane, and had her committed, got custody, full custody of the kids for a while, which is why, by the way, if you look at the recent documents that came out, juvenile documents, Aaron was basically suing for back child support, as well as interest on it and legal fees. And her response to that was, yes, I do owe you all of this. I see no issues. I'm not fighting it. So even she's agreeing with it there. But the way that she told the story was that he used his power and influence in order to get her committed, to get her deemed mentally unwell, so that he could basically hurt her by taking custody of the children.
And I guess, knowing that he hasn't made any statements, and again, I mean, he was a news anchor and knows how to communicate to the public as a public person, that what stands out to you that he's showing up to these court appearances, but then at the same time, he's not making public statements?
Again, I think it's really odd. The people in his family who have responded to me are basically saying that there's all sorts of different things that they're saying, whether it's he doesn't want to entertain it, he doesn't want to call his daughter a liar, he wants it to just kind of go away. When you're in a situation like this where you have somebody going full scale on you, like Angie has on him for so many years, you do not have the option anymore of being quiet. And to your point, you're in the news. I'm following a social media standpoint, considered a mild public figure, as is Aaron. And when you're at a level where you're somebody that people recognize, you have people who follow you, know your name, recognize you, you have a duty, if it's not true, in my opinion, to sit there and try to defend yourself, not just sit there and take these accusations, because it makes you look very guilty. Like, I'm not going to deny this because it's true. I'm not going to deny this because I don't want people looking more into it. So I'm just going to sit here quietly. And to me, as somebody who can try to look at things objectively, the silence looks like complacency. And there's just no other way to put it. And I would strongly encourage him, if he does not agree with the accusation that's against him, the accusations that are against him, make a statement, talk to somebody, whether it's you guys or Nancy Grace or Ashley Banfield, somebody, to at least put your side of the story out there.
And just where do you see this case going from here? I mean, I know she's behind bars. She could be in prison for years because of
Yeah.
what she's been arrested for. What happens now?
So a couple things I want to point out about that too is, yeah, she's looking at 8 to 10 years. My understanding is just on the murder for hire charge. According to some of my sources, there is ongoing investigation as to why, as to basically more charges. Um, I don't know how much I can say about that, but it makes me kind of wonder if they pushed the bond hearing back to the 29th because they're waiting to bring on more charges. So she's being held on a $500,000 bond in Franklin. She was, I think, on Tuesday supposed to have a bond hearing, Monday or Tuesday, and they pushed that to the 29th. I think that there's going to be more charges brought on her, whether it's related to this or other things. I know that Aaron had allegedly subpoenaed, well, not even allegedly, we know from the documents, had subpoenaed the or her bank records for Chase Bank, supposedly to look at the GoFundMe money, to go after the GoFundMe money that she collected. Um, and the other thing about this that I really want to point out that's very interesting, in my opinion, is that usually when you deal with murder for hire plots, you're looking at federal charges. It's rare to see something that's just really confined to the local space, TBI, Tennessee.
Right.
And from what I understand is, you're not going to see federal charges brought on this murder for hire, because everything, it was not done with a computer. So there's no, using a device, interstate device, to try to make this deal happen. But it was all kind of done word of mouth. She meets up with the undercover officer. She offers the vehicle of her car, or the title registration to her car, as collateral, along with some cash, and they arrest her. And this goes down 2 o'clock in the afternoon. When I first heard, I was like, oh, this was like some late night seedy kind of thing. But no, it was in a very, very nice part of the Nashville area, right in the middle of the day.
Yeah, and it would make sense too, because I know it was a concerned citizen that came forward to alert the police this was going on. So word of mouth, someone getting, when you hear someone's looking for a hitman, allegedly, you would hope someone would go to the police in that case. It's a fascinating story. I know, Justin, you've been following it for a long time, and in some ways, this is a new chapter that is very much in its infancy, and we'll see how it all plays out. Justin Shepard, just in the nick of crime on social media. Thanks for joining us on Law and Crime, helping us break it down.
No, absolutely. Thank you. And for your listeners and your audience, I think that this is going to get really big. I think that with all the layers that are going to be surrounding this, start watching now, because if not, you're not going to be able to keep up with it.
And that kind of brings up actually one more point while I have you. In terms of, because I know the defamation lawsuit, we found it through federal court records, and that was dismissed, just wasn't seen by the judge as the right venue for that argument, and that he wasn't able to show that he was financially hurt, just based off, I know it's a little bit of kind of the legal ins and outs of it. Has he won any sort of, he's sued her for defamation. I know there's some other lawsuits there. Has he had any major court victories beyond filing lawsuits against her?
Not that I'm aware of. And he also filed lawsuits, to my understanding, against several social media creators who were covering it, because, it's very important when people are covering things like this, as you know, to make sure that you use terms like allegedly and supposedly and according to reports, because if not, you're really just throwing out blatant accusations, and you can't legally do that. I know that a lot of lawsuits have been filed. I don't know if victories there were, if people settled out of court, or cease and desist ended up working for him. But to my knowledge, I've not heard of any major victories on his behalf.
Interesting. All right, Justin Shepard, digital journalist. Thanks for being here on Law and Crime.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Solomon is expected back in court May 29th. For On the Case presented by Law and Crime, I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.